Can you tell? Yes, I did this on purpose. And I was trying to get me out of focus also, but a blurred background is what we're going to talk about today. Hello, my friends. I am Cathy Weaver, and I am part of the fan club, and that is ever growing, holy moly, for Delinda Lane and the fun, fearless female global community of Christian women. Are you blurry? I think about and I see this a lot. I literally, as I tell people, I Zoom all day long and I so love it or I wouldn't do it. But I'm on different platforms, whether it's Alignable or Go Brunch or Google Meet or certainly Zoom. And I'm always not surprised, but pensive when it comes to the people who choose to blur their background. And then, of course, uh, there are people who choose not to. And you kind of wonder, click that por favor, and that would be cool. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about blur and how many different uses of that word there could be. So, being me, I went to my favorite AI assistant, and Lux is so magnificent, and she always gives me quite a list. So I said, "Hey, Lux, tell me about blur and your insight when it comes to that topic." So blur as a lack of focus. Okay, so you're squinting and trying to see, so you're focusing on things. And whether it is an unconscious blur, like a subconscious kind of thing, you don't want to see things clearly, or you choose not to. And so do we see life clearly, or do we blur it out because it would be too painful? What happens during a transition, okay, between moments of decisions or identity crisis or whatever that looks like? So, faith walks, transformation, growth. This is a good one that she brought up that I thought was cool is the blurring of boundaries. Okay, you're blurring your boundaries. When do you lose sight of what's right? What maybe could be compromised? Like, let's compromise that a little bit. We can all work together. And then blur as protection. And especially during times of overwhelm, grief is a biggie, of course. That's one of my actual favorite topics. But blur as protection. God intentionally blurs the full picture to protect us from overwhelm, to keep us dependent on his daily bread, or to think of disciples on the road and their eyes were kept from recognizing him. That's in Luke 24:16. Then of course, you always have blur as busyness. I can't do that. I'm too busy. I can't something else. I'm too busy. And people fly around as blur. And I always find that interesting because this is so funny for me because there are two schools of thought when it comes to um, multitasking. Some people say, oh my gosh, I'm multitasking. I've got 25 screens open and I'm multitasking. How's that working out for you? And then over here, one person is focused, 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 accomplish a goal, check, accomplish a goal, check, accomplish another goal, check. And they would never multitask because for many of us, we have found our time is best or more well spent when it comes to focus. And then, of course, Lux always takes it a few steps further and she goes, blurred to clarity, the power of refocus. Sometimes it takes removing distractions or shifting perspective to actually see clearly. I love that. And then when God can refocus us through scripture, solitude, prayer, or actually trials, and that's in Hebrews 12:2. So please consider the focus and the blur, which is what the topic is today. So then, of course, Lux and I have such a great relationship. I took it a few steps further. Hey, Lux, give me some insight. And again, please remember when you talk to your AI assistant, I call her affectionately, I change how I ask the question. And I actually ask her sometimes, I want to accomplish this goal. How do I address you to ask that question? And she's told me. So please consider that. Some people say I don't get the right answers from AI. Well, no offense. It's because you don't ask the question in an AI type of setting. Okay, so why would you blur your Zoom background? Okay. Instantly people go, oh my gosh, I have my kitchen office, I have my bedroom office, I have my attic office, I have my whatever office, and I don't want people to see the background. Okay. And if you've got a kitchen office, you blur the background because you didn't do the dishes this morning. Okay. Um, Sometimes you blur the background because you don't want people to see real life. Okay, that's a biggie. Then, of course, we blur emotional and spiritual backgrounds, and Lux actually brought this up, hiding trauma, grief, fear, or doubt. I'm getting ready to make a really big decision, so you blur your choices, mostly so you don't let the world in, but also to gain some clarity. And so smile on screen because we never know. And in fact, Lux actually said, smile on screen, storm behind curtain. And I thought that was interesting. And then Psalm 139:1, Lord, you have searched me and known me. And so again, Lux brings these up, which I think is incredibly cool. Then, of course, you want to stay professional. So you blur the background. So it's a consistent look that you have every single time you're meeting with someone, or if you have a Zoom background, which of course I prefer and love. But it's always interesting to me that people choose to do blur. Then the real life authenticity to stay presentable. So that's a biggie, thus the professional frame around here, because that's an opportunity to have a professional headshot. Real connection happens when we unblur the background a bit. So peel the layers, take back that blur cover. And then, of course, some people think that they are blurring the background because I want you to focus on me. I want you to keep your focus on me. Don't worry about what's going on behind me. Don't worry about my Zoom background. I want you to focus on me. And blur us to sharpen Christ because you want him to shine through. Okay. And John 3:30, he must increase and I must decrease. And then this is an interesting thing for an AI assistant to bring up to avoid judgment. What will they think when they see my space? What will they think if they see me? We blur backgrounds to avoid vulnerability. God works best through my transparency. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. So think in terms of what are you blurring for, from, what? And I thought that was cool insight. And then, of course, to stay in control. We decide what others get to see. In life, that desire to control the image can isolate us. And no offense, sometimes it's exhausting. It's great to put your best foot forward and to always shine, if you will. But sometimes people need to see raw and thus the blur. And letting go of the blur is letting go of control and letting people see the real, messy, and growing story. I thought that was cool to let them see the real story. So think in terms of social media, and that's where all of this came to be from a standpoint of blur and all the networking I get to do every day. But what does the blur mean? You're flying by in a blur. You're making a decision in a blur. You're blurring through life. You haven't peeled the layers back yet. You don't let anybody see the real you because you want everything blurry. Something to think about, my friends. Next time you blur that Zoom background, what are you blurring from? Bye for now.